What's up, everyone? Welcome to Unmasked, where things are discovered, uncovered, brought to the light, and made known. I'm Lamar Barrett, coming live to you from PG County, Maryland. If you're interested in finding out about the untold stories behind a college coach, this is the show for you. Being a former assistant men's college basketball coach for 16 years, there are so many untold stories behind the scenes in the life of a college basketball coach. Now, let's unmask them. Today's guest is a longtime friend, longtime assistant coach. And when you're in this business and you're more than 10 years in now, even no matter how old you are, everyone is a longtime assistant coach or a head coach now. And he's also a Chicago native, Akeem Miskdeen. Now, Akeem and our stories kind of intertwined before I even get into his bio. About 12 years ago, we had a mutual friend, and he was, at Hampton then as a GA. That was kind of his welcome into the business, or I'm sorry, a director of basketball ops at the time, kind of a welcoming into the business. He went right into D1 after playing, at the Division II level. So we had mutual friends, and so ever since then, it's been like not just friends, but like a brotherhood. So I've seen him, grow in this business. As a guy I respect a lot. And one day he'll end up being a head coach is what I think. So, and I wanted to make sure I got him on this story, on this podcast, just to hear a little bit about him and things about him behind the scenes. So, like I said earlier, Akeem started off, after playing college basketball, he started off as the director of basketball operations at Hampton University. From there, he went to Mount Olive. And then he goes back to his alma mater at Wingate, if I'm not wrong, and coached there. And then he actually had a chance to go back to Hampton University for 5 years as an assistant coach, and he did a terrific job there. Went to a few NCAA tournaments. Those guys did a terrific job. Buck Joyner been the head coach there, Ed Buck Joyner, a guy that I know real well. And then, from there, he goes on to Kent State. And he did a terrific job there for 2 years. I know his first year there. He was in the NCAA tournament again. So wherever he's gone, he's done a terrific job. And then he's now, the last 2 years, he's spent in Florida Atlantic in Conference USA. So there's a big, bright future for Akeem, and I'm proud to just call him a friend, a brother, and a guy that I expect big things from. So, with saying all of that, welcome to the show, Akeem.
Man, I'm grateful to be on your show, on your podcast, and I want to clarify one thing. From Mount Olive, I went to Wingate, played for Coach Good, who coached me at Queens. I played at Queens University. I know Queens, my Queens people get upset, so I just want to make sure that I said that. But no, I'm grateful to be on this show, and some people may not know, Lamar was actually at my wedding, so we're very tight.
Yeah, and then we also have, Rodell, who's your coach in Wyoming, yep. Who, my wife, Sandy, became friends with Rodell's wife, Stephanie. And so it's just a whole big common thing. Rodell out of Chicago, Stephanie out of Chicago. So, and so it became, when you start talking in this circle, there's a very small circle in this business. So I know he's associated with good people, and that's always a good thing. When you associate with good people, nothing but good things can happen to you. So saying all of that, Akeem, let's get unmasked, because that's what we're here for. Speaking about this business, and a lot of people don't understand when you're in this business for what it's called now. It used to be college coaching, but somehow it's become the business. We'll go back to your early days, and it could probably happen everywhere you go. There's no handbook to being a college coach, and that's what people don't understand. We say it all the time, like this job, every job that you usually have, you probably get some type of training before you go into the job. Well, I can think of two jobs just off the bat that doesn't happen: college basketball and being a car salesman. Like, you just thrown into the fire and figure it out. So there's no handbook. But tell me about your first day, first week, first month, you know, after things are done with human resources and orientation, like, especially when no one gives you direction, like, what is that like?
So for me, I was fortunate because I was at least around Hampton. I know that position at Hampton. Some people may not know I didn't get paid for that position. I volunteered for that position. So I worked at the shipyard, Newport News shipyard, and sold sandwiches for $10 an hour. And from 8 to 2, I did that. Then from 2:30 to whenever, I worked at Hampton and kind of supported those guys in the operations role, in a hustle role, if you want to call it. So, you know, wasn't quite, I was more of a manager operations guy, but my first real job at Mount Olive, you know, that's when I became assistant and went through human resources. Then, you know, I'm right in the office. Okay, now what I do? And I had to figure it out because, you know, from 8 to 2, I was selling sandwiches. So I didn't know what a lot of our uh, assistant coach responsibilities were day in and day out because I wasn't there from 8 to 2. I was only there from practice and post practice. So I got in the office at Mount Olive. I'm like, all right, let me make some recruiting calls. Let me get it, you know, D2, you can get right on the road. And I can just recall, and I don't remember the tournament or the game or whatever. I remember watching quality education play. And Coach Pitts used to coach at quality education, and they were loaded. And I was like, man, this guard is really good. This guard is really good. So I called him, and it was Stargell Love. And I called Stargell, and I'm like, hey, I'm at Mount Olive and this and that. And I'm giving my whole pitch. And he was very respectful. And Stargell was like, Coach, no disrespect, but, you know, I got, you know, high majors recruiting me. So that goes to show you that I didn't know anything about recruiting. I just was like, man, he just as good as some of the guards I played in Division II. So he could play, you know, at Mount Olive, not knowing that Stargell Love, you know, he committed to Baylor, and I don't know what happened after that, but he was going to Baylor. So here am I'm right here calling and trying to recruit, and I'm recruiting guys that should be at high majors. So that goes back to what you said, like, it's no handbook. You kind of figure it out. Obviously, you know, when you play, you look at your coaches, but you're not in the office with your coaches. You just see how they treat you, and you know, okay, I want to coach and treat people like this, or I don't want to be treated like this. But you don't know the day in, day out activities in the office of a coach.
It's so true. And thinking about that, you Stargell Love. Wow. What was your best and worst recruiting story?
Man, my best and worst. I'll start with my worst. So my worst is I was at Kent State, and I'm recruiting my hometown, a kid from my hometown who's started to blow up at the end of the summer. Really good, getting recruited by everybody. And I have really good inroads, obviously, in Chicago, and I knew a lot of people basically surrounded him. I knew everybody surrounded him. You know, I didn't know him per se as far as his family, but I knew everybody surrounding him. So the kid, you know, he goes to Missouri Valley School visit. He comes to us. Then a week later, we bring another kid in from Detroit who is really good, who's still really good. And they know each other because they played. And we're sitting down at the dinner table, and the kid from Detroit receives a text from the kid from Chicago. And he's asking him how his visit going. And the kid from Detroit basically, man, I'm loving it. I think I might do it. I might commit. And I knew the kid from Detroit was probably going to commit to us. So the kid from Chicago basically commits at the dinner table after they finish texting while we're at dinner with him. So, you know, I go in the bathroom and kind of try to figure it out, you know, try to get some edits made. And I told Coach, you know, at the time I was at Kent State, I told Coach Sinderoff, like, yeah, you know, this kid commits. And we had to basically tell that kid, because they played the same position, that, you know, we never had this happen, and this is, you know, we got to go with this kid because he committed. Then a week later, that kid decommits, and he's playing in the Big 12. So that's one of the worst recruiting, and what that tells me is, once a kid leaves campus, if another kid's on a campus, even if you commit, it's not your scholarship. This kid has the right to this scholarship. And that just goes to in my gut, I knew the kid from Michigan was probably going to come, and I knew the kid from Chicago probably wanted, higher. He had higher aspirations to go Division One. One of my best recruiting stories, man. I'm trying to. Obviously, I had some decent success recruiting. I would just say like seeing it through. I wouldn't say it's more. It's not. It's a story of seeing 4 years through. Recruiting a guy and seeing them, excel in the court and graduating. So, when I was at Hampton, Reggie Johnson's from Chicago, Quentin Chivas, he got his master's degree. He transferred from Tennessee, played at Hampton, won 2 championships, got a master's degree. Reggie was miserable at the place he was at. He transfers to Hampton, has 2 great years, 2 championships, get his master's degree. Even the Brian Dordens of the world, who's from Hampton Roads, he went to another school, didn't had some trouble, and he came back to Hampton and got his degree. I talked to him like 2 weeks ago. Has a daughter. Sent me a picture of his daughter. So for me, that's the success that I see in recruiting, when you can see them all the way through, and that they're going to be good citizens and great men in the world.
Speaking of Brian Darden, he sung at your wedding, right? Was
yeah,
that Brian?
Brian Dorton's son at my wedding. I'm really close. I try to be really close to all the players. And I know you said before, our business, we're in a business, quote unquote. But for me, I don't even see myself as much as a coach. I'm more of a mentor. I try to mentor these guys. I try to have them be able to see a young man that's doing well, have a family, and try to be like more of a role model and mentor. Obviously, I get on them. I love them. I tell our guys I love them. One of our guys posted something on Facebook the other day. I only coached him for a year here at FAU. And he said, Coach Akeem taught me these 3 things. And I said, man, pay it forward. I love you. Because, I do. I've spent 4 years of my life with them and spent more time sometimes with them than my family. So, we're basically family now, and I love those dudes that, even the dudes that I get into it with. I love those guys too. We get into them. I get into it with my brothers too, but I still love them. So
there you go. What did you have to give up? Because that's what a lot of times people don't understand how tough this business is, how much time you're away from family. Like your job isn't normal. Like, we, as a former coach for 16 years, like, you don't get that many days for holidays. You don't get to spend time. Like, when you go on vacation, you're really not on vacation. The only time you really get to yourself is when you get married, and you don't have, like, they kind of stay away from you for that. But,
yeah.
You go on vacation, you got to worry about phone calls, setting up visits. Because most of us, like, when we go on vacation, it's August. It's like, that's one of the few times that's what people don't understand. It's either going to be May or August. It's not other times you can take it. So when friends are like, I'm going here, I'm going there, like, nah, I can't go. My wife got to be like, nah, we can't go. It's basketball season. So what did you have to give up to achieve your current level of success?
Man, I would say my family in Chicago, more so than my family here. They get to see me every day. That's tough. I love home. So giving up, seeing my family get older, my mom and my father, and my father passed in February 14th. Not being able to spend as much time with my father and my parents as much as, I could have. I had opportunities to go back home. That's probably the thing I have to give up. Not knowing how to cook my father's recipe, that bothers me to this day. And I tried to cook it 2 weeks ago. It wasn't like his food. So that bothers me more so than anything. That's the biggest thing that bothers me. Just not being able to spend time with my family.
And it's interesting, like you just said that family, your father passed away, and like we're close. So we this network, man, is small, and so we're brothers. But like you at FAU, it's my dad passed away. I can remember this a few years ago. We have a game that night. It's my scout report, and this tells you like how you so locked in when it comes to the season. I got a game that night. He dies that morning. I go through the game. Game is over. Didn't even say anything to my boss at the time. And like, you know, I waited and it's like, hey, you know, father passed away. So I'm on a flight the next morning to Norfolk to, you know, with Newport News in Hampton. I'm, you know, got to do all the arrangements that day to fly back to get ready for practice because we're leaving on Friday to head down to Boca Raton to play Florida Atlantic on a Saturday. Mm-hmm. And then after the game we play, I fly out the next morning to fly back to Hampton to get ready for the wake and the funeral on Monday. So when you say that, like, people don't understand that, like, deaths, marriages, you just don't, it's like, you know, you don't want to put anything before your family, but like a lot of times this is your livelihood. And like, you know, you missed some of those important times, like you were saying.
Yeah. And I'm fortunate enough, I wouldn't say fortunate, but I'm fortunate enough to have a really good boss. During that time, my father was really ill and we knew he didn't have much time to live. So during the middle of the season, 2 weeks, I mean, I could have missed the rest of the season. My boss would have been fine with it. So I'm fortunate enough. And one thing I will say, sometimes, you know, after my father passed, and my father was a hard worker, trust me, he would be, if he was in his right mind, he probably would have told me to go back to work. Like, what are you doing? So it made it easier for me to go back after, knowing that my father would have gave me his blessing to go back to work. And you know, sometimes basketball is that vice that gets your mind off of it. So it kind of helped. But that's the one thing, man, just like you said, not being able to spend as much quality time with your family because you're always moving.
Yep. Yeah. So leading to that, like, what was your best and worst scouting report? Because and sometimes it's not even like talk about it, like sometimes you could end up doing the best scout report and have the worst loss. You think it's like, man, I got everything, and the kids may not come to play that day, like you know, and then you might have the worst scout report and you blow a team out. So, you know, and then like, you know, you got that coach that's turning to you, and like if you miss one play, they're all over.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, you know, some guys like play calls, some guys like the action. So what was your best and worst scouting report?
Before we even start, man, I'll just tell you a quick story because I know we're on Unmasked, and this may help a lot of coaches. When I first started, this is my second year. I'm 23 years old at Mount Olive, and I knew how to draw the plays up, but I didn't know how to articulate, you know, what to do. Like, I couldn't decipher a dribble handoff or know how to articulate a dribble handoff from a handoff. So I can remember just drawing the plays because we posted in the locker room like a lot of teams do. We put it on carbon paper, post in the locker room. You know, you type up the scout. Okay, I can do all that. But getting on the floor, I was a little nervous and I couldn't articulate that stuff. So during the middle of the season, Joey Higginbotham, who I love, you know, he's a big time coach at Mount Olive, he took it away from me, which I needed it. Yeah, I hated it, but I needed that to happen for me to work on my craft and get better. So the next year at Wingate, Coach Good knew that I wasn't that great at it because coaches talk, you know, and I just practiced it every day in the mirror. I worked on it relentlessly and said, this will never, ever happen to me again. So with that being said, like couple of my best scouting reports, I would say Kent State. When I worked at Kent State, we played Ohio. They were really good. Jerron Simmons led the league in assists. I think he was second or third in scoring. They were really good, and they tried to spread you out. And I thought, you know, my scout was really good at stopping them. And that run, that's the first year I was at Kent State, and we ended up making to the NCAA tournament. I was like a 6th seed in the conference. I believe we were either 6 or 8 in the conference tournament, and we ended up making a run. I thought that was a pretty good scout. Another one, you know, scouts when I was at Hampton. You know, I did a lot of scouts when I was at Hampton. Just you know, the second to last year I was at Hampton, we those scouts, because we were like a low seed, and those scouts were really good. So I would say every scout that I was at Hampton and Conference tournament. One of my worst ones, I would say now, man, like I'm trying to figure out how to be Marshall. So I'm 1-4 against them right now. So, and it's just funny because and this is just being transparent. I was on a Zoom call with a Houston Rockets G League coach, who's one of my friends, Mahmoud, and he told me everything about Houston, what they trying to do. And I'm like, man, what am I thinking? Like, D'Antoni's brothers coaching Marshall, they're trying to do the same thing. So I was like, why didn't I think that? Make them take tough twos, no threes, no layups. That's it. So sometimes we overthink it. And like I said, I'm 1-4 against Marshall. So, next time I'll be like, all right, they're going to have to take tough twos. Whatever we do, guys, this is exactly what they want to do. Threes and layups. And also just using your gut. We played Marshall at home, we beat them, and we played really good. Then away, we lost to them. But going into that game, in my gut, I was saying, man, these non-shooters, I think they shoot better at home. And I looked at the stats, we looked at, and it was the same. So I was just like, all right, I'm going to go with the stats. But my gut was telling me, no, these non-shooters. And you know how it is, man, a couple non-shooters knocked down some threes, and I was sitting over there sick like I should have listened to my gut. But those are just some examples. But Marshall is still hunting me. Trust me, I've been watching film on them all summer, trying to figure them out because, that's my scout, and we are 1-4 against them, and we should at least be, 2-2 at worst.
Yeah, like I trust me, I had Marshall a couple of years ago, even when I was at Hofstra. I had him before with the earlier squad, before D'Antoni got there. But I mean, you're 100% right about they love to shoot threes and layups, and so we played them a couple of years ago, and people don't realize how good they are at home. That's a tough place to play.
Oh.
It's an unbelievable crowd there. He's done a great job, and people love their basketball up in Marshall, man.
Oh man, they love ball. And the other thing they do, like to go with that, is drive and kicks. Since they don't want to take tough twos, you can't really help that much because they're trying to drive and kick out for three. So that's just some of the stuff. And like you said, and this is Unmasked. They have a great crowd, which dictates some of the whistle calls. So I'll leave it at that.
There you go. So leading into that, what's your biggest challenge you think you've experienced since you've become a college coach?
Oh man, that's a great question. And I'll just go back to what I tell some of my players, especially since my father passed away. Man, nothing's hard. Because I know how, my father worked and he never made excuses. So I never see nothing hard, but it'll be a little adversity. So I'm trying to think about some adversity. I would just say climbing the ladder, it's a little, that it's tough because I didn't have the coach's tree, or my dad was a coach. I didn't have any of that. I went from playing D2, JUCO, D2 to, volunteering at a D1, back to D2, back to that same, D1, which is HBCU for 5 years. Then they say, guys can't never leave HBCUs. Guys never leave HBCUs. Then I get a PWI and a really good one at Kent State. Then coming in here. So I would say that's probably the biggest challenge, just climbing the ladder. Now, the next challenge for me is like, how can I climb the ladder and be a head coach? So I would say that's my biggest challenge, just making sure I'm prepared for each opportunity that may come my way.
Okay. Now, do you ever find that there are things about you that people misunderstand? Like what are they? If it's anything that you think that people may misunderstand about you?
Man, I'm pretty cool with a lot of people. I'll tell you one thing that a coach said that's funny, and I don't know if this answers your question, but I was interviewing for a particular job, and when that coach hears this, he may laugh, so I won't say the name. I was interviewing for a particular job, and I don't know if he told me this or somebody else told me this. They said, man, nobody has nothing bad to say about you. That's crazy. Like, that's like, it's something wrong here. You know, it's too much good stuff. Like, nobody has anything bad to say about you. So I don't know. I don't know if it's, you know, I've never heard it, or obviously, you know, if it's anything, it may be like, man, how does, you know, how does he get here and I'm still here by some other guys? And I really don't listen to that. You know, I try to keep, you know, this, like, my circle's pretty tight. And I lean on those guys, and I really try to keep the outside noise. I don't let the outside noise bother me. I keep going. So.
And just off that, right? Can you, because I've heard you on some Zoom conferences, just talk about how you know, like the blind is like a horse, like how your focus is. Can you talk about that a little bit? Just how you are.
Yeah, that's how I was when I played too. It was mostly like, man, when I was in college, that's how I played. Like, I knew, okay, practice. I love practice. I knew basketball. This is going to get me somewhere. It's funny, back in the day, I'm from the Bellwood, Maywood area, suburb out of Chicago. And, you know, Corey McGatty, Michael Finley, all these guys used to have free camps. And I'll never forget, Michael Finley held up the ball and like, man, this ball can take you anywhere. This ball can take, and you know, that's cliche, the ball can take you anywhere. But I've never forgotten that. I was like, man, this ball can take me anywhere, man. I'm not going to let this ball deflate. I'm going to use this ball. And that's just how I've been driven, just to make sure that I'm walking by faith, not by sight, and just make sure that I'm kind of positive. Obviously, I'm going to speak my mind a little bit every once in a while, but I'm more so positive about everything. I'm going to have energy. I'm going to be a good husband, good father. And I'm really not worried about, you know, if somebody my age is a head coach or he's a high major. That's just not my concern, because that's not what, you know, that's not where I'm at right now. You know, maybe I'll get there, but God has me right here. So I'm not concerned if somebody else is at such and such making this much money, or somebody my age is at this place, or you know, this guy made the 40-40 under 40 list. I didn't. I let everybody else speak to my work about that, and long as, you know, long as I'm doing good, I'm fine. I see myself just doing what I need to do, and if I'm blessed enough to be a head coach someday, man, I get there. If not, and you know this, Lamar, if not, I'm gonna work hard here and try to make this the best place it can possibly be. But I have blinders on. I just really don't see what everybody else doing. Now, I will say this: I see what guys are doing, and maybe I have aspirations to get there, like, you know, head coaches or somebody. But I won't hate on anybody. Like,
Right.
I'm not hating on anybody. That's their walk, man. That's what they got, and they may have problems in their walk, just like I got, you know, problems in my walk. But I'm just like, everybody that's doing what they need to be doing, just keep your blinders on and do what you have to do, and don't look to the right or the left of you. Look in front and keep walking, and I'm sure something great will happen for you.
I just think that's good stuff, and I wanted you to share that with our viewers. But you kind of said something about it earlier, so I'm gonna pick it back on a little bit. But, like, you know, what would you try to teach your players besides basketball?
Man, and it's more so what I do too, you know. And I always, you know, I always got a story. Like, I watch what my coaches have done. Like, you know, Rodell Davis used to bring me over his house, man, do a lot of things over his house, whether it be have a meal. Stephanie Davis was like my godmother. And that's not to say that me and Coach Davis didn't get into it as a player, but he loved me unconditionally. And it's not like he said it; it was just by his actions. Heck, I wanted to transfer. He'll tell you that. I want to do a lot of things, but at the end of the day, I knew he was the perfect coach for me. And the same thing, like, for our players, like, my job is to get them better on and off the court. And as coaches, I think sometimes we get it confused, because they have 18 years worth of habits that they've been doing, and we get 4 years with them. And sometimes we have to break some of those habits, and sometimes we get frustrated and impatient because those habits won't get broken. So, like, when they get here, some of the stuff I do with them is, you know, talk to them, be with them, and individual workout. because sometimes their language is through basketball, one-on-one, rebounding and doing skill work. Then from there, you may can bring them over your house. Then you could talk about other stuff. And just like us, you know, Lamar, if I ask you about your wife, you get excited because you love her. So you want to ask those guys about how their family is doing. Like if I ask, you know, one of our players, how's your mom doing? Like they love their mom. So they're going to say, yeah, she's doing this. Then they'll remember like, man, Coach Akeem always asked about how such and such was doing. So you want to, through basketball, you want to create a relationship that, you know, that they'll be able to tell you anything and you'll be able to spend some time with them, you know, after they graduate. That's always what I think about. Like, man, I want to build a relationship with these guys. So after they graduate, we still have a relationship. If they want to go, you know, hang out, or I want those guys to invite me to their wedding. That would be awesome if I can go to one of my players' wedding. But just spending time with them mostly, man, that's what they need. Especially, you know, a lot of players don't have a father figure. So just providing them with a father figure in their life that they can kind of lean on and talk to and just being a mentor for.
Yeah, I always say that, like, it's, you know, when they come to campus, they're 17, 18, 19-year-old kids. And so, you know, parents are dropping them off, and say it all the time, like, you know, they've done a great job of, you know, they've done a great job of rearing their children. Some people try to say, oh, like, you know, you did a great job of you've raised cattle. You don't raise children, you rear children. So when they drop them off, like, the parents have done a great job of getting them to being a young man. Now my job is to get them these are 4 or 5 years, the most important years of their life. A lot of these kids don't understand. It's usually like 75, 80% of the time, it's usually where you're gonna live. It's usually where you're gonna find your girlfriend or wife. Like all of that stuff, you know, where you'll go to church and how much you're gonna spend time there. And so my job is to try to get them to becoming a man, teaching them life lessons. So, you know, and I tell the and they remind you of that. That's the one thing. And if you're not doing what you said you were gonna do, kids will let you know that. And the parents gonna call you up and say, you told me you're gonna look out for my son. Whether you're there, if you've left to go take another job or not, parents remember that stuff, kids remember that stuff. So I always say my job, I think we're educators no matter what. And for 45 years of their life, you're going to be the most important person in their life. And like you said, you hope that builds into a lifetime relationship. And I just think that stuff is so important, because a lot of these guys, this is the first time, you know, besides their coach in high school, that they've had a father figure in their life. And, you know, a lot of times people don't see that. So
yeah, no, we say here it's not a 4-year relationship; it's a 40-year relationship. I mean, it's like you said, we got a kid. I just got off the phone with our director of ops, and he was talking about Jonell Davis, who's coming next year. And Jonell is from Gary, Indiana, and you know he got both parents. He got a good support staff, but you know they shielded him because it's where he lives at. It's tough. So he goes from basketball to home. So he'll be here, like he has to adapt to being on his own, not just going from basketball to his dorm, because he's not going to do that in college. He's going to have like a little social life, so he has to adapt. So we have to prepare as coaches to help him adapt to a different place and a different culture than he had at Gary, because he was basically shielded. Like he wasn't going anywhere. So now he'll have, you know, a little freedom, and we got to help him adapt.
So what are your best and worst memories in coaching? Like, obviously you've been to the NCAA tournament multiple times, but what is your best and worst memories in coaching?
Man, great question. And we're on Unmasked, so I'm just gonna be honest, man. Like my 4th year at Hampton, we weren't doing so great. We had some talent, and we were nervous about our jobs. I will say that we were a little nervous about our jobs. So that was a rough season. But we end up winning the conference tournament, and we go to the NCAA tournament and take care of themselves. But it was just a rough season to see how, you know, some people acted. It was rough. That was rough. But it's almost like you know, we lost, we were losing or whatever, but we won the conference tournament, and we go to the NCAA tournament. I got a picture of me looking so drained and tired from that season, like after the championship, that I don't know if I went out to celebrate. I was so tired, but that was one of the moments I was like, man, that's unbelievable. Like we go from not playing that good to rolling the conference tournament, and we win a game in the NCAA tournament. We beat Manhattan, so that was a pretty unique experience. Just the opportunity to go to 3 back-to-back NCAA tournaments, man, that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen too much, man, at some mid-majors, one big league. So that's pretty, you know, unique for me to say I experienced that. And the experience of going to the NCAA tournament is unbelievable. I mean, it's really unbelievable. You're treated like a king. One of my low points of coaching is probably my second year as an assistant coach at Wingate University. We had a really talented group, and we made it to the conference tournament. We made it to the conference tournament championship. We lost. We won 19 games. And Division II is Division I because it's different than Division I. It's based off regions, and 8 teams get to go to the tournament from the region. So after that game, we go back to campus. And if I'm not mistaken, that same night or maybe the next day, we were watching a selection show, and we didn't get in. That was so hurtful because we all thought we were getting in. Like, there's no doubt in my mind. We beat teams that got in. We did everything we could, and it's only 8 teams in the region, and we didn't get in. So that was really that was a unique experience for a young coach like me. That kind of drove me. And the guys will tell you that's on that team. I think 2 weeks after that, we got after. I was like, we make it to the tournament. So much so they made it to I left to go to Hampton, and they made it to the tournament. They won the conference tournament championship and sent me a picture. And I was there for 1 year. That just goes to show you some of the relationships I had with those guys, and I still do. They sent me a picture because they knew I was just as hurt as them.
Wow. All right, so this is kind of, it could be serious, funny, however you want to put it, but like, what is the strangest thing a player has done outside of the basketball court?
The strangest thing. Man, I got to think about this because there's so many. I'll give you one. So, I'm not going to say the name or the school because this is going to be too bad. But this one player got his pill check, cost of attendance, whatever. And he went crazy with it. Took all of it. You know, a lot of guys want to take all their money, show it on social media. Took all of it. And he ended up losing all of his money. And called the head coach. And lucky enough, we had, you know, who I work for, all the head coaches I work for were really good. But this in particular head coach would even get up 2 a.m. and go get those guys. And he went to go get them. And that kid was so devastated. So that was one of the strangest things that I ever witnessed. And the other little strange things is just like some of the freshmen just not knowing, like, you know, one of our Mike Forrest, who's here, and I love Mike.
I love Mike.
Forrest. Mike is a big time. Yeah, you guys recruited Mike at Hofstra. Mike Forrest is going to be a 1,000-point scorer, and he kind of set the table for what we're building here. He's an important piece. Averaged 9 points a game. He's going to be one of the best guards in the league next year, hopefully. And so Mike just goes hard. He plays basketball. Great kid. Majoring in engineering, but Mike. First year, I was just talking to our ops about this. First year, after each huddle, Mike has some random question. And so we scrimmaging somebody, and Mike asks me, Coach, are we going to keep going back to the locker room, back to the court, back to the locker room? And you take it for granted. He just doesn't know. Like, he doesn't know this is how it is. Like, he takes that for granted. And he just loves to ask random questions, you know, that's just odd questions. You're like, okay, Mike, no more questions. Like he asked one of the players from Miami Heat. One of the players came and spoke to us, and he asked him, you know, how is it playing with Dwayne Wade? You asked another grown man that played against with Dwayne Wade. How is it playing with Dwayne Wade? Not like he's playing with Jordan or he played with him prior or he retired. He just said, how is it playing with D Wade? And, you know, and the guy was just caught off guard by that question.
Yeah, Mike is very intelligent, but like,
Very.
but like, you know, it's some things you probably like. Okay, like you always say, common sense, book sense. He definitely has great book sense. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
And the crazy thing is, Mike is getting better too. I was just telling Coach May about this. Mike was, when I first called him and our whole staff first called him, it was just a weird conversation. But now you can call him and you can have a legit conversation. So, and that goes back to what I said, just, you know, growing up, you know, he's a young adult and he's grown up into a man. Like, he knows how to conversate. He knows not to ask some random questions. Like, that's just him growing up.
Now, this is kind of tough because you work for a great guy. You work for great guys. But I'll ask this even later on. And I think you're gonna. To me, I know you'll be a head coach one day. I just feel like that's gonna happen. But if you had a chance to work for anyone in men's college basketball, like, who would that be? Like, I mean, that's you going to a higher level. Because everyone, like, you see guys like, you know, you've had guys that work for, you know, some of the best in the business. But like, who would that be and why? But it could be an AD or a head coach. Like, who would you look at? Because you've worked with great guys, so I'm not even take those guys out that you've worked for and you currently work for. But like, who would you say?
Man, that's a good question, Lamar. Man, that's a great question. I'm a little biased for this answer, and a lot of people gonna be like, "What?" But I would have to say Juwan Howard. He's a Chicago guy, and I would be really literally helping him because he's trying to, you know, make his imprint in coaching. He's trying to get Michigan back to where they need to be. And I've seen him coach when Miami Heat. They use our facilities for preseason, so I've seen him in action. I would say he would be one of the guys that I would really be interested. And the crazy thing is, they have the AD that I would want to work for too with War Emanuel. So it would be a win-win situation.
Wow. All right, this is kind of it's kind of you might already know it. I know we're so involved in sports and stuff, and it could be from anything. But what movie or TV show title best describes your week?
Man. Now this is crazy because I would say this. Good times, even though they had hard times, but that describes like my week. It's gonna be good times. Like, it's not gonna be like I'm not gonna wake up miserable. I mean, I'm blessed to be alive. I get to do what I love to do. I'm married to a beautiful woman. I have a great daughter, you know, so it's good times. It was actually pretty easy. Not saying, you know, good times. It's crazy because good times is really doesn't describe the time that they had. They really had hard times until the end. But for me, it's good times.
You know what? You're the second person on this show like this week that's like say good times. Like, I mean, I guess, you know, I mean, yeah, like that's actually it's interesting that
the other one, I will give you
that.
another one. I will give you another one too. Like, and it's crazy. I'm going back to like these shows that I used to watch when I was younger, like Family Matters. I mean, like, that describes, you know. So it's some good 90s shows that I will use their head topping for just to describe our week.
I like that. So what's your favorite word or phrase? You know, like you might be in practice or doing the game or like something you picked up, but like, what's your favorite word or phrase?
Oh man, it differs from school to school because, you know, you try to speak the same language. Man, can I just change that question to what I dislike the most is guys. I'll probably say don't run underneath the basket. That's what Coach May and our staff would say for rebounds. That drives me nuts when you're running underneath the basket, unless you think you stretch Armstrong, like you're not going to get a rebound. So everybody know, even our players know, like I get on them terribly when they run underneath the basket for a rebound. So that would probably be it. Don't run underneath the basket. Coach May gives us freedom. Sometimes if it gets too crazy, I'll blow the whistle. I'm like, God, we're running underneath the basket. I would say running underneath the basket. It kind of drives me crazy.
I got you. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given? And a lot of people don't know, you played for a great high school coach, rest his soul, but what's the best, your dad, great man, you come from a great family, but what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Man, I'll just give it, I'll answer this with I have two answers. From my dad, it was always respect, respect our last name, respect, and just from him, that's what he told me, make sure you respect people. From all the other coaches and everything I learned, is especially about coaching, it's not about money. I've never been in this thing about money, and the grass isn't always greener on the other side. We always hear that, but I really, that's who I am. Like, it's not about money for me. It's about, will I be able to be who I am within the organization that I'm working for. So.
Where is your happy place? Like, people have some of that. Like, what would your happy place be?
Man, family matters. So being with my family, that's, go back to the TV show. Being with my family on the couch watching Netflix is one of my happy places. The other one would be listening to 90s R&B, drinking some wine is my other happy place.
Okay. Now, this is, and I always like to kind of like end with this one. Knowing what you know now, what would you tell your young self to prepare for as an assistant coach?
Okay, I think the question was, knowing what I know now, what would I tell my young self to prepare for as an assistant coach?
I would probably tell myself to go and learn as much stuff as I possibly can as a young assistant. When I was at ops at Hampton, I didn't go to ODU, I didn't go to Norfolk State, I didn't go to VCU, I didn't do any of that stuff. I probably would, knowing what I know now, I probably would have did all that stuff, knowing video, everything. I would have tried to learn as much as I can. Graphing, like I would have probably went to school for graphics or something like that. Heck, knowing what I know now, even as a college student athlete, I probably would have went to school for psychology, something different. But I would have tried to learn as much as I can when I was in that ops position before I took an assistant coach position, by going around to different schools, by talking to different assistant coaches, asking them specific questions, not about recruiting, but about scouting, about, your normal day in the office, about suggesting to head coach. How do you suggest to head coach? Stuff like that. That's what I would have done differently. Or that's what I would have told my younger self.
And see, Akeem, and I think there's steps to a lot of this stuff, which people tend to jump those steps, and they jump in it and they never learn the full side of the business. You know what I'm saying? So that's what happens a lot of times, is they just jump. They want to jump and want to make the most money they can. And that's why they end up, a lot of times, people get in and they get out quicker than they think. So, but once again, I appreciate it. Thank you again for being a guest on the show and being unmasked. Is there anything you want to say before we end the show?
Man, the same thing I always say when I leave any of these podcasts, man. And you asked me this, just, you know, when you stand in your lane, you don't have to look to the right or left of you. Just stay in your lane, walk by faith, not by sight. And what I mean, walk by faith, just walk by faith and not worry about what the next man doing. Have aspirations to be like somebody, but you don't have to look to the right and look to the left. Like, just know that, you know, your path is already directed and you don't have to emulate or try to race somebody else to get a position that you want. You know, it'll happen for you. And the other thing I would say, man, when you're trying to coach and all this, make sure you have a really good circle, a circle that can give you wise advice, and a circle that can help you. And it doesn't have to be 50 people, you know, just have a circle that can really help you and it's going to be honest with you and it's going to tell you the truth no matter what.
You heard it here from Akeem, Miskdeen. Thanks again, Unmasked fans. Stay tuned for the next guest as we get them to become unmasked. All right, Akeem, take care.
Thanks, Lamar. Really appreciate you, brother.